After my father's funeral, my cousin pulled me aside and whispered, "You're cut out of everything. Grandpa always liked me better." I laughed, thinking it was a joke, until the lawyer handed me a crumpled envelope containing only a receipt for a sandwich I never ate. The entire family watched me break down and whispered, "So dramatic." 3 years later, they were the ones pounding on my door for help when everything fell apart. 3 years ago, my world fell apart. It was February in Boise, Idaho, cold, gray, the kind of cold that settles into your bones. My dad had been sick for months. Cancer. It chewed him up fast. By the time he agreed to go to the hospital, it was too late. I stayed by his side until the very end. Holding his hand, talking to him even when he couldn't answer anymore. He was all I had. And when he was gone, it felt like somebody had pulled the floor out from under me. The funeral was small. Dad didn't have many people left. Some old coworkers. A few neighbors. And, unfortunately, our so-called family. My Aunt Marlene walked into the church like she owned the place. Wearing a fur-lined coat, even though it was just a few degrees above freezing. Dragging her son, Blaine, behind her my cousin, the family screw-up who somehow always landed on his feet. After the service, while people picked at the sad little buffet in the church hall, Blaine found me by the exit. He leaned in, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "You're cut out of everything," he whispered. "Grandpa always liked me better." I actually laughed. I thought he was being an ass, like always. He used to hide my toys when we were kids and then act innocent while I got blamed. This felt like just another one of his games. But then the lawyer showed up with the envelopes. One for each of us. Thick envelopes for everyone else, real papers, important papers. Mine? Mine was crumpled. The lawyer didn't even look me in the eye when he handed it over. I opened it. Inside was one thing, a receipt. For a gas station ham sandwich. Not even a good one. Just some $3 garbage from a place I'd never even been. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I kept digging through the envelope, but that was it. Nothing else. Everyone else was already flipping through their packets, deeds to Grandpa's house, checks, bank accounts, cars. Blaine caught my eye from across the room and winked. The whispers started. Loud enough that they wanted me to hear. Always thought she was better than everyone else. She's just like her mother. Drama queen. Not surprised. I felt the tears burning behind my eyes. I shoved the envelope into my coat pocket and left without saying a word. Not one of them stopped me. Not Marlene. Not Blaine. Nobody. The weeks after the funeral were the darkest of my life. The little house Dad left me was barely holding together. The roof leaked. The heater groaned like it was dying. I was working part-time at the public library, barely covering groceries. Every time I passed that crumpled sandwich receipt on the kitchen counter, I felt sick. How could they? How could they laugh while they gutted me like that? But I survived. Barely. Until the day Mr. Emmons showed up. Mr. Emmons owned the old hardware store on 5th Street. He used to fish with Dad when I was little. He showed up at my door one rainy evening, holding a battered manila folder. "Your dad told me to give you this if anything happened," he said. "Said he didn't trust your aunt." Inside the folder was a letter. Dad's handwriting, shaky but still him. He explained everything. Before he died, Grandpa started losing his mind. He'd forget where he was. Forget people's names. He was diagnosed with early-stage dementia. Marlene and Blaine swooped in. They convinced Grandpa to change his will. Cut out Dad. Cut out me. But Dad suspected something was wrong. He talked to Grandpa's old lawyer before he got too sick. The real will, the one Grandpa made when he was still in his right mind, was locked away. Mr. Emmons had it. Along with proof. Medical records. Notes from Grandpa's doctor. Enough to fight back. It took almost a year to drag everything through court. Marlene and Blaine fought like hell. They accused me of forging the documents, of taking advantage of an old man. They called me greedy. But the evidence was solid. And Blaine, idiot that he is, left enough of a paper trail to bury them. When the judge ruled, it was like the world tilted back into place. The fake will was thrown out. The real one restored. They lost everything. The houses. The cars. The accounts. Turns out Blaine had already spent most of his inheritance on junk bad investments, a car he couldn't afford, stupid get-rich-quick schemes. Marlene tried to sue me afterward. It got thrown out. She showed up at my work once, screaming that I stole her life. Security dragged her out. Fast forward to last winter. I was doing okay. I used some of the trust fund money to buy a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Started a small business, nothing flashy, just enough to live without worrying. It had started to snow when I heard the knock. I almost didn't answer. But something made me look. Blaine stood there. No coat. Face thin, eyes bloodshot. Behind him, Marlene sat in an old car, wrapped in a dirty blanket. Blaine knocked harder. Please, we're out of options, he said, voice cracking. We don't have anywhere else to go. For a second, I just stood there. I thought about that day at the church. The crumpled receipt. The whispers. The way they watched me fall apart and laughed. I thought about all the nights I cried myself to sleep in the freezing house Dad left me. While they threw parties in Grandpa's house. I didn't say a word. I closed the door. And locked it. I turned off the porch light and sat in the dark while he knocked and knocked. Eventually, the knocking stopped. I don't know where they went after that. I don't care. I thought that night was the end of it. I thought they'd finally disappear and leave me alone. But I was wrong. About a week later, I found Blaine again. Not on my porch. Not banging on the door. This time, he was sitting outside my business. I run a small print and copy shop on Main Street, nothing fancy, just enough to keep the bills paid. There he was, slumped against the wall like a stray dog. When I got out of my truck, he stood up fast and shuffled over. Just hear me out, he said. I'm not asking for money. Just a job. I laughed. Right in his face. He flinched but kept going. I can sweep floors. Do deliveries. Anything. Please. Marlene's not doing good. She's sick. I can't get work with my record. That caught me off guard. I hadn't heard about any record. So I dug around later. Turns out after the court loss, Blaine had gotten desperate. Tried a little credit card fraud. Nothing big enough for prison, but enough that his name was garbage around town. Nobody would hire him. Not even the fast food joints. Still, I told him no. You made your choices, I said. Now live with them. He called me a heartless bitch as I locked the shop door behind me. I thought it was over again. But it wasn't. 2 nights later, my shop got broken into. The front window smashed. Cash drawer ripped open. Equipment trashed. The police came out, filed a report. Said it looked like some druggie looking for quick money. I knew better. Nothing of real value was taken. Just destroyed. Insurance helped, but it wasn't enough. I had to close the shop for 2 weeks to fix everything. I lost customers. Income. The worst part? I couldn't prove it was Blaine. He was smart enough not to get caught on camera. But I knew. Then the real kicker came. Word started spreading around town. That I was the one who faked the break-in. That I was pulling some insurance scam. That I wasn't as sweet as everyone thought. Guess who started those rumors? Marlene. Sick as she was, she still had her poisoned tongue. She started telling everyone at her church group that I ruined their family. That I stole Grandpa's money. That I set Blaine up to fail. And people believed her. Or at least, enough people to make life miserable. Customers stopped coming. Old friends stopped calling. Boise's not a big town. Gossip moves fast. And sticks. I tried to hold my head up. Tried to tell myself it would blow over. But it didn't. It got worse. One morning, I found an envelope taped to my front door. Inside, a letter from a lawyer. Marlene was suing me. Claiming emotional distress and wrongful seizure of assets. It was bullshit, of course. She had no case. We'd already been through court. Everything had been ruled legal. But it didn't matter. I still had to hire my own lawyer. Still had to pay court fees. Still had to show up, waste my time, fight it all over again. It drained me. Not just the money though that hurt, but the energy. The hope. It felt like no matter how many times I knocked them down, they got back up with more venom. I hit my breaking point one night sitting on my kitchen floor. The house was dark. Quiet. The legal bills were spread out in front of me. I thought about Dad. How tired he looked in his last days. How he still tried to smile at me, even when he couldn't breathe. I thought about all the nights he worked overtime, cleaned toilets, hauled lumber, anything to give me a chance at a better life. And here I was. Letting these leeches drag me down. Something broke inside me that night. I wasn't going to play defense anymore. It was time to finish this. After that night on the kitchen floor, I made a decision. No more sitting back. No more waiting for them to kick me when I was down. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to destroy them. First step, dig deeper. I hired a private investigator. It cost me most of what little savings I had left, but it was worth it. I gave him 2 names, Blaine and Marlene. Told him to find everything. 2 weeks later, he came back with gold. Turns out, while Marlene was crying poor to the church crowd, she was still sitting on assets she didn't report during the original court case. A hidden savings account under her maiden name. Not a lot, maybe $30,000, but it was enough to prove she lied under oath. Blaine was even worse. He'd been dealing drugs on the side. Small stuff, but still illegal. Even dumber. He was stupid enough to talk about it in text messages. The investigator handed me a thick folder full of screenshots, bank statements, even photos. You could ruin them with this, he said. And I intended to. First, I sent a copy of the investigator's report to Marlene's church board. Not the cops, not yet. I knew exactly what that would do. Marlene lived off her reputation there. The good Christian woman act. The charity drives. The public prayers. Finding out she lied about her finances? That she committed perjury in court? It would be social suicide. Sure enough, within a week, Marlene was quietly asked to step down from her church leadership positions. Word spread. Fast. Suddenly, the same people who whispered about me started whispering about her. I heard through the grapevine that even her pastor stopped taking her calls. Then I went after Blaine. This time, I didn't send warnings. I sent everything straight to the local police department. They raided the cheap apartment he was crashing in 2 days later. I don't know if they found much, probably not, but the possession charges and the outstanding warrants for missed court dates were enough to throw him behind bars for a while. It made the news. Small article, buried in the back section. But in Boise, everybody reads the back section. His mugshot was the cherry on top. There was no more sympathy for the poor kid who got cheated by his cousin. Just another screw-up finally getting what he deserved. I thought it would finally be over. I was wrong. Marlene showed up again. Not at my house. At my business. screaming, sobbing, wailing so loud the neighbors came out to watch. "You ruined us," she shrieked. "You're going to hell for this. You hear me?" I stood behind the locked glass door and watched her lose it. Didn't say a word. She banged her fists on the glass until her hands bled. Finally, the cops came. They dragged her away, still screaming about family and forgiveness. But it wasn't forgiveness she wanted. It was my life back. And she was never getting it. But right when I thought the worst was over, another enemy appeared. One I didn't see coming. Uncle Dave, Marlene's brother, crawled out of the woodwork. I hadn't seen Uncle Dave in years. He'd stayed out of all the drama at the funeral, or so I thought. Turns out, he was waiting. Waiting for the dust to settle. Waiting to pick a side. And now that Marlene was ruined, he needed a new target. Me. He filed a motion claiming Grandpa had promised him money too, verbal agreements, he said. Trying to get a piece of what little was left. Trying to drag me back into court all over again. When I heard Uncle Dave was dragging me to court, something inside me cracked for good. I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry. I spent the next few weeks preparing. I barely slept. Every night, I dug through old papers, text messages, bank records, anything that would help me tear them apart. Uncle Dave had no real case. It was just another shakedown. But he was meaner than Marlene and Blaine. He spread rumors. Started showing up at my work, standing across the street, glaring. He even went around town telling people I robbed the family blind. It was like living under siege. When the court date came, I was ready. I walked into that courtroom with my lawyer and a box of evidence so heavy I could barely lift it. Dave had nothing but lies. No paperwork. No witnesses. Just his word. But I had more than proof. I had Blaine. From jail, desperate to cut a deal, Blaine had agreed to testify for me in exchange for a lighter sentence. Under oath, he told the court about everything. How Marlene and Dave conspired to change Grandpa's will. How they laughed about cutting me out. How they spent Grandpa's money before he was even buried. The judge listened in silence. When it was over, the ruling was swift. Uncle Dave's case? Thrown out. He was fined for wasting the court's time. Ordered to pay my legal fees. And I didn't stop there. I filed a countersuit for harassment, defamation, and emotional distress. And I won. Every dime they still had gone. Their houses? Foreclosed. Their cars? Repossessed. Their savings? Seized. Blaine ended up getting a reduced sentence, but he still served time. He's still in prison now, rotting. Marlene lost her house. Last I heard, she was living in a rundown motel on the edge of town. Nobody talks to her anymore. She's a ghost. Uncle Dave? He skipped town. Left Idaho completely. Some say he's sleeping in his truck somewhere in Nevada. And me? I got the peace I fought for. But it cost me more than money. It cost me my sense of family. I don't trust people the same way anymore. I don't let anyone get close. There's a part of me that's colder now. Harder. I won. But I'm not sure I'll ever feel whole again. Sometimes I wonder if they broke something in me that night at the funeral, something that can't be fixed. Sometimes I wonder if, deep down, they got what they wanted after all. If you take anything from this, blood doesn't make people family. Actions do. And sometimes, the best thing you can do, is close the door. And never open it again. Not even when they're begging on their knees. Especially then.